The darkness of space stretched endlessly around the small human ship Aurora. Stars shimmered like cold diamonds. Scattered across a sea of black silence, inside the ship, the soft hum of engines was the only sound keeping loneliness away. Eli Parker, a young engineer, sat in the control room, watching the sensors blink lazily. He had been out here for 6 long weeks, searching for signals, studying debris, and fighting boredom. Then something changed. The radar flashed red. A faint signal pulsed from the edge of the system. Weak but steady, Eli leaned closer, adjusting the scanner. "That's not a human frequency," he whispered. The signal was repeating, slow and rhythmic, like a heartbeat. He called to his captain. "Sir, I think we found something alive." Minutes later, the Aurora changed course, gliding toward the dying light of a small orange star. As they got closer, the image on the screen became clear. A large alien ship, broken and spinning slowly. Half its body was torn apart, metal floating in fragments like silver bones. The captain frowned. "No signs of life," he said. But Eli wasn't sure. He felt something strange. A small pull in his chest, like the wreck was calling to him. The human crew prepared for boarding. Their small shuttle approached the alien ship, passing through clouds of frozen gas and shattered panels. When they entered, the silence was heavy. The corridors were wide and dark, walls covered in strange glowing veins. It looked both mechanical and alive. The air smelled of burnt metal and cold. Eli's flashlight cut through the dark, and his heart beat faster with every step. Then he heard it. A sound, soft and trembling, a whimper like a frightened child. Eli stopped and raised his hand. "Did you hear that?" The others aimed their lights around, but saw nothing. He moved forward slowly, following the sound into a damaged chamber. The walls were cracked open. Sparks flew from broken cables, and there, in a corner, lay something small. It was an alien child. Its skin was pale blue and glowing faintly. Eyes like tiny stars. One of its arms was missing, wires and blood mixing in a strange way. It was alive, barely breathing. Eli dropped to his knees, his heart twisting in shock and pity. The others stepped back, whispering, "We can't help that thing. It might be dangerous." But Eli ignored them. He took off his glove and placed his hand near the creature's chest, feeling a weak pulse. "It's just a kid," he said softly. "It's scared." He looked around the wreck and saw signs of fire and struggle. Maybe pirates. Maybe war. Whatever happened, this child was alone now. The captain's voice came through the comm. "Parker, get out of there. We're not bringing alien life on board." Eli clenched his jaw, staring at the child's face. He couldn't walk away. He wrapped his emergency blanket around the small body and lifted it gently. "I'm not leaving it here to die," he said firmly. Back on the Aurora, alarms started flashing as soon as they docked. The computer detected foreign DNA. Medbots tried to scan the alien, but their systems failed to identify its biology. Eli worked quickly, his hands steady, his mind racing. He used the ship's 3D printer to make a simple prosthetic limb, combining human alloy with organic fiber. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. He whispered to himself, "You'll live, little one. You'll live." Hours passed. The alien child stirred, its glowing eyes opening slowly. For a moment, it stared at Eli with confusion and fear. Eli smiled softly and said, "You're safe now." The child didn't understand the words, but it felt the tone. It reached out weakly, touching Eli's hand, and for a second, their worlds connected. Human and alien, separated by galaxies, united by kindness, but outside, danger was already coming. The ship's long-range sensors detected something massive entering the system. Multiple energy signatures, fast, powerful, and heading straight for them. The captain's voice trembled. "We've got incoming ships, alien configuration, war-class vessels." Eli looked down at the child, whose eyes widened with fear. He realized then, whoever those ships belonged to, they were looking for this child. The crew rushed to battle positions, but everyone knew they couldn't fight such a force. The Aurora was a small science vessel, not a warship. Eli stood in the medical bay, holding the alien child close. He could feel its small heart beating fast. Through the window, he saw lights filling the void, dozens of alien ships surrounding them. His throat went dry. This was not a rescue. It was a royal retrieval. A deep, commanding voice echoed through the radio. "Humans, you have something that belongs to the Empire." The captain froze, unsure what to say. Eli whispered to the child, "It's okay. I'm here." But deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. One act of kindness had drawn the attention of an empire, and among those ships, hidden behind layers of energy shields, the queen of the alien empire was coming for him herself. The Aurora floated quietly in space, surrounded by a ring of alien warships. Inside the ship, the crew moved in silence, their hearts heavy with fear. They had sent out messages to Earth Command, but no reply had come. Every screen showed the same thing, dozens of glowing red dots closing in. Eli Parker stood beside the small medical bed, watching over the alien child. The child's new limb lay half-attached, shining softly in the dim light. Eli's eyes were tired, but his hands were steady. He had worked through the night, repairing broken tissue with human nanotech and alien fibers. The alien's body was strange, almost liquid in places, yet structured like crystal. Every time he thought he understood it, it changed. Adapting to his touch, he whispered quietly, "Hang in there, little one." The child's breathing was weak, but still there. It had survived worse, Eli thought, and it would survive this too. He wasn't a doctor, but he was an engineer, and sometimes that was close enough. Machines or living beings, they all needed fixing. One way or another, the captain entered the room, his face pale and tense. "Eli, they're calling again," he said softly. "They want the child." Eli didn't look up. "If we hand it over, it will die," he replied. The captain sighed. "We're outnumbered, Parker. One wrong move and they'll blow us apart." Eli nodded slowly. "Then we stall," he said. "Just a few more hours." He adjusted the prosthetic limb carefully. Connecting the last nerve points, the alien child twitched and made a small sound, almost like a word. It looked up at Eli, eyes glowing faintly, and whispered, "Who, man?" Eli froze, shocked. "You can talk?" he asked softly. The child tilted its head, repeating, "Who, man?" and smiled weakly. A soft laugh escaped Eli's throat. It was the first time anyone had smiled on this ship in days. The captain watched from the door, his expression softening for a brief moment. The fear in the air faded, replaced by something simple and pure: hope. Outside the window, alien lights flickered, scanning beams moving across the hull. The alien empire was growing impatient. Every few minutes, a voice demanded surrender, echoing cold and formal. Return the royal one, or face destruction. Eli didn't hear them anymore. He was focused only on keeping the small heart beating. He used a biogel patch to stabilize the connection point. The new limb twitched and then slowly began to move. Fingers curled and uncurled, mechanical and biological working together perfectly. Eli smiled. "There we go." "That's it," he said. The child blinked, staring at its new arm in surprise. It lifted the arm, touching its own face gently, as if testing whether it was real. The captain whispered, "You did it." Eli nodded. But there was no time to celebrate. Suddenly, the ship shook violently. Lights flickering off for a second. A nearby console sparked. Alarms blaring through the corridors. "They're firing warning shots," the captain shouted. "They're done waiting." Eli turned to the child, who was trembling now. He kneeled beside the bed and said softly, "Listen, it's okay. I won't let them hurt you." The child looked at him, then placed its new hand over his. It said one word again, "Who, man?" But this time it sounded like friend. Eli's chest tightened. He didn't understand how, but he knew the child trusted him. The communication screen lit up again. The alien commander appeared tall, armored, with eyes burning like molten gold. "This is your final warning," the voice said. "Return the child of the Queen." Eli stared at the screen. Speechless, the captain swallowed hard. "Child of the Queen?" He repeated. The alien's voice echoed, "You are harboring royal blood. Your act is seen as a threat." Eli realized the truth then. The small creature lying on his table wasn't just anyone. It was the heir to an empire, and by saving it, he had unknowingly broken their sacred laws. The captain whispered, "We're finished." But Eli shook his head, his voice calm and steady. "No, we're not." He leaned close to the communication mic and said, "Tell your queen her child lives because a human cared enough to help." The alien commander's eyes narrowed. But there was hesitation, for the first time. The transmission ended without a threat. Hours passed slowly. The ship surrounded and silent. The crew waited, unsure if they would live or die. Eli stayed beside the child, checking its pulse. Adjusting the limb again and again, the child slept peacefully. Glowing softly under the medical lights, every rise and fall of its chest was a victory. Suddenly, the darkness outside brightened. A massive shadow appeared between the alien ships. A single vessel, larger than cities, slid into view. Its hull shimmered with golden light. The Aurora's sensors couldn't even measure its power. The Queen had arrived. Every crew member froze in awe and terror. The ship's scanners went blind. The power flickered again. A voice filled every frequency, deep and commanding. "Bring forth the human who touched my child." Eli looked at the sleeping alien and whispered, "So, you really are royalty." The child opened its eyes and smiled faintly. It reached out, touching his cheek. As if saying goodbye, Eli took a deep breath. He stood up, straightened his uniform, and looked toward the airlock. He didn't know what the Queen would do. He didn't even know if he would survive. But one thing was clear. He had done what was right. And that one act of kindness had already changed everything. The airlock lights turned green. The crew stepped back, silent, as Eli walked toward the door. The voice echoed again, louder this time, "Human. The Queen awaits." And with that, Eli stepped into the blinding light, unaware that what came next would shake both species to their core. The light from the alien mothership filled every corner of space. It was so bright that the stars themselves seemed to fade. The small human vessel Aurora looked tiny beside the golden giant. The crew watched silently as the massive ship opened like a flower, revealing glowing corridors and strange energy rings. They could feel the hum of power through the hull. Like a heartbeat in the dark, Eli stood in the airlock, waiting. He could hear his own pulse echoing in his ears. The air around him shimmered as energy waves brushed against the walls. He took a deep breath, whispering to himself, "It's going to be fine." But deep down, he wasn't sure. A voice spoke through the comms, calm and commanding. "Human, step forward." Eli nodded once to his captain, then walked through the door as it opened. A beam of light surrounded him, and suddenly he was gone. The Aurora crew gasped. Teleportation. Smooth and silent, Eli blinked as his vision cleared. He stood in a vast chamber that glowed like sunlight, trapped in crystal. Walls shimmered with living energy, shifting colors like flowing water. Strange alien guards stood around him, tall and elegant, with eyes that glowed silver. Each one held a staff that hummed with quiet power. In the center of the room stood a floating platform. On it, a figure waited, regal, motionless, and surrounded by light. Eli knew at once. This was the queen. Her form was tall and graceful. Her skin like glass mixed with gold. When she moved, her body shimmered like molten light. Her eyes burned bright, ancient, powerful, but not cruel. She spoke, her voice echoing softly through the chamber. "You are the one who touched my child." Eli swallowed hard, then bowed slightly. "Yes, Your Majesty," he said quietly. Her gaze seemed to pierce through him, seeing everything, his fear, his courage, his choices. "Why?" She asked simply, "Why would a human risk his life for one not of his kind?" Eli looked up slowly. He could still see the child's face in his mind, small and scared. "Because it was the right thing to do," he said. "It was hurt, and I could help. So I did." The queen tilted her head slightly. "Do you not fear us?" she asked, her tone curious, not angry. Eli gave a small smile. "Right now, yes, a little," he said softly. "But fear doesn't decide what's right." The queen's eyes glowed brighter for a moment. Behind her, a smaller figure stepped forward, the alien child. It was alive, wearing a silver robe and moving with ease. Its new limb gleamed under the golden light, perfect and functional. When it saw Eli, it ran toward him, laughing in a high melodic voice. "Oh man," it said joyfully, reaching out its new arm. Eli smiled wide, kneeling down as the child hugged him. Around the room, alien guards shifted in surprise. Whispering in their strange tongue, the queen raised a hand, and they fell silent. For a moment, even she seemed unsure what to say. Her voice softened. "My child has never smiled before." Eli looked up at her and said gently, "Then I'm glad I could help." The queen stepped closer. Her presence filled the air like gravity itself. She placed one long, elegant hand on her child's head. Then she looked at Eli, her expression unreadable. "You gave life where even our healers failed," she said. "How?" Eli shrugged slightly. "Human technology, mixed with instinct," he said. "I didn't think. I just acted." The queen studied him silently for a long moment. Then she turned to her advisors, speaking in her own language. Their eyes widened, some even protested. The queen raised her hand, silencing them again. Finally, she turned back to Eli. "In our history," she said slowly, "no alien has ever touched royal blood and lived." The guards looked at each other nervously. Eli felt a chill run down his spine. But he stayed still. The queen continued, "Yet, to destroy you would be to erase an act of pure mercy." She took a deep breath, her glowing eyes dimming slightly. "You have done what none of my kind could. You have shown compassion without expectation." Eli didn't speak. He simply nodded once. The child squeezed his hand and smiled again. The queen's gaze softened for the first time. Then she turned to her guards. "Send word across the empire," she said. "The humans are not enemies." The guards hesitated, unsure, but the queen's voice grew firm. "This act will be remembered," she said. "Let no harm come to their worlds." Eli felt a strange mix of relief and disbelief. He had come here expecting death. Instead, he had witnessed peace. The queen looked at him one last time and said softly, "You have changed the heart of an empire, human." A bright light surrounded Eli again. In a blink, he was back aboard the Aurora. The crew gasped as he appeared, eyes wide in shock. "What happened?" the captain asked. Eli smiled faintly. his voice quiet but full of wonder. "I think we just made history," he said, outside the window. The alien ships began to move away. Their weapons powered down and their lights dimmed. A single message came through the comm system, a child's voice, soft and kind, saying only one word: friend. The Aurora floated quietly once more, surrounded not by enemies, but by stars. And though no one could explain what had just happened, every human on that ship knew one thing: kindness had spoken louder than fear. Silence filled the Aurora. Every crew member stood still, staring at the stars where the alien ships had vanished. Eli Parker sat in the control room, his thoughts drifting like smoke. He still felt the warmth of the light that had surrounded him in the Queen's chamber. He could still hear her voice, calm yet heavy with power. The captain placed a hand on his shoulder. "Parker, you just saved us all," he said quietly. Eli shook his head. "I don't know what I did," he replied. "I just helped a child." The captain smiled faintly. "Sometimes that's enough." But deep down, Eli knew the story wasn't over. Hours passed. The Aurora continued its slow return course toward Earth space. The crew hoped to rest, to forget the fear, but the universe had other plans. A sudden energy pulse hit their scanners again. Another ship was approaching, bigger than any they had seen before, glowing like a small sun. "Not again," the captain whispered. The crew braced for impact, alarms flashing red. But this time, there were no weapons locked, no threats. Instead, a message appeared on the screen, a royal seal, golden and bright. "Prepare for visitation," it read. "The Queen herself is coming." The air in the ship grew heavy. Eli's heart pounded in his chest. He didn't understand why she would come back. Had she changed her mind? Was this judgment or gratitude? No one spoke. Everyone just watched as the alien mothership appeared again. It stopped right beside the Aurora, its size blocking out the stars. A light beam extended from the massive ship, touching the small vessel gently, and once more, Eli vanished in a soft wave of light. When his vision cleared, he found himself in the same grand chamber as before. But this time, the Queen was not alone. Rows of alien nobles stood behind her, tall and shimmering. Their faces were emotionless, their eyes fixed on him. The Queen's child sat beside her throne, smiling shyly, its new arm glowing softly. The Queen herself looked calm, but her expression carried a weight Eli couldn't read. She spoke softly. "Human Eli Parker, you stand before the Empire once more." Eli bowed his head. "Your Majesty," he said. She continued, "There are those who demand punishment for your actions." Gasps echoed through the hall, the nobles murmuring in low tones. Eli felt his stomach tighten, but he stayed silent. The Queen raised a hand, and the room fell quiet again. "They claim you violated our sacred law," she said. "No one touches royal blood without permission." Her golden eyes focused on him, bright and unblinking. Eli took a deep breath. "If helping your child was wrong, then I accept whatever comes," he said. "I didn't mean to break your law. I only meant to save a life." The Queen watched him for a long time, her face unreadable. Then she stood, her robe flowing like liquid gold. "Approach," she said, her voice echoing. Eli stepped forward slowly, his heart beating like thunder. When he stood before her, she raised her hand and touched his forehead. For a moment, everything went silent. The light around them dimmed, and visions filled Eli's mind. He saw alien cities floating above oceans of light. He saw endless battles, ancient wars, and a people who had forgotten mercy. Then he saw the child, her child, smiling for the first time in centuries. The visions faded, and the Queen stepped back. Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke. "You did not break the law," she said slowly. You reminded us of something far greater. The hall fell silent. No one dared to move. The queen turned toward her people, her tone firm and powerful. This human saved my child not for glory, not for power, but for kindness, she said. His heart saw no difference between blood or race, between human or alien. She raised her voice. Let it be known that mercy is not weakness, but strength. The nobles murmured, unsure, but the queen's eyes silenced them again. This human, she continued, has changed what it means to be noble. Eli stood speechless. He hadn't expected praise, much less honor. The queen stepped closer and placed a glowing crystal pendant in his hand. This is the seal of unity, she said softly. Only given once in our history. Eli looked at it, the crystal pulsing faintly with light. What does it mean? He asked. The queen smiled gently. It means you are now a friend of the Empire. The hall filled with soft murmurs of disbelief. The queen raised her hand once more. From this day forward, she declared, no ship shall ever fire upon a human vessel. No soldier shall raise a weapon against their kind. Her voice grew softer, almost kind. And if the humans ever call for aid, the Empire will answer. The child ran forward, hugging Eli again. Eli smiled. Feeling tears sting his eyes, he whispered, You'll be okay now. And the child nodded happily. The queen looked down at both of them, her gaze filled with pride. Then she said quietly, One act of kindness can heal more than 1,000 wars. Light surrounded Eli again, and the next second he was back on the Aurora. The crew gasped as he appeared. Clutching the glowing pendant in his hand, the captain stepped forward. Eli, what happened this time? Eli smiled faintly. We've got friends among the stars now, he said. The pendant glowed brighter, casting soft golden light across the cabin. Outside, the alien ships turned and vanished into the dark. But their parting signal remained, a bright streak of gold across the stars. The crew of the Aurora watched in silence. None of them spoke for a long time. They all knew they had witnessed something far beyond imagination. Human kindness had not only stunned an empire, it had changed it forever. The stars outside the Aurora shimmered softly. Space was calm again. No more red alerts, no more sirens. Only peace. The crew moved quietly, still trying to believe what had happened. Eli Parker sat by the window, holding the glowing pendant the queen had given him. The crystal pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. Each glow reminded him of the child's smile. The memory of that moment stayed bright in his mind. He had expected punishment, maybe death, but instead, he had been given something far greater. Trust. The captain walked up behind him, resting a hand on his shoulder. Eli, you did something no one else has ever done, he said quietly. Eli smiled. I just fixed a broken arm, he replied softly. The captain shook his head. You fixed more than that, son, he said. You fixed something between worlds. Eli didn't answer, but deep down, he hoped it was true. A soft beeping sound broke the silence. A new signal was flashing on the console. The communication officer frowned. It's from the alien empire, she said. Eli turned, his heart racing again. The screen lit up with the royal seal, followed by a familiar small face. It was the queen's child, smiling brightly. Man, the child said, waving its new limb proudly. Eli laughed softly, his eyes warm. You're healing fast, he said. The child nodded. Mother says I must learn from you. Eli blinked in surprise. Learn from me? What do you mean? A second later, the queen appeared beside her child. Her golden form filled the screen with light. Human Eli Parker, she said in her calm royal voice. Our scientists wish to understand your technology, your compassion, and your way of thinking. Eli smiled awkwardly. Well, our way is simple. We just help when we can. The queen's expression softened. And perhaps simplicity's the greatest wisdom, she said. She looked toward her child. This one now teaches our people that mercy can build strength." The child giggled. "Who man strong because heart strong?" The entire crew smiled. The room filled with quiet laughter. The queen raised her hand slightly. "I have sent something for you," she said. The ship trembled gently as a small capsule appeared outside. The captain ordered it to be brought aboard. When they opened it, they found a small cube made of shining crystal. Eli touched it carefully, and the cube unfolded in his hands. Inside were glowing shards of data. Alien knowledge. The queen's voice echoed through the cum. "This is our gift," she said, "a fragment of our science, shared only once before in our history." Eli looked at the cube in awe. "Why give this to us?" He asked softly. "Because," the queen said, "your kindness has already given us something greater, peace." Her golden eyes glowed brighter. "Your people may not yet understand what you've done, but one day they will," she said. Then she added quietly, "You reminded us that power without compassion is empty." Eli nodded slowly, his chest tight with emotion. The queen's child leaned close to the screen. "When I grow, I come visit you," it said cheerfully. Eli chuckled. "You're always welcome, little one," he said. The queen smiled faintly. Then the signal faded, the screen going dark again. The room stayed silent for a moment, as if no one wanted to break the peace. The captain finally spoke. "Well, Parker, looks like humanity just made a powerful friend." Eli laughed softly. "Let's hope we can live up to it," he said. The crew cheered quietly, their fear replaced by pride. For the first time, they didn't feel small in the vastness of space. They felt seen, respected, and remembered. Days later, the Aurora entered Earth orbit. Command demanded a full report. But when Eli told them everything, most didn't believe it, until he placed the glowing cube on the table. When it activated, filling the room with streams of alien data, even the generals fell silent. The story spread fast. News networks across Earth called it the Day of the Queen's Gift. For the first time in human history, an alien empire had reached out not with weapons, but with friendship, and it had all started with one man and one small act of compassion. Eli Parker became known not as a hero, but as a bridge between species. Months passed. The alien empire kept its word, sharing knowledge and offering peace. Joint missions began, scientists from both sides working together. The galaxy that once seemed cold and distant now felt alive with possibility, all because a human refused to walk away from a wounded child. One evening, Eli stood on the observation deck, watching the stars again. He held the pendant in his hand, feeling its soft pulse. The captain walked up beside him, smiling. "Thinking about the queen?" He teased. Eli laughed. "Just thinking about how big the universe is," he said, "and how small one choice can be." The stars shimmered like they were listening. Eli raised his eyes to the sky and whispered, "One act of kindness can change everything." Somewhere out there, on a golden world far away, a queen and her child looked up at the same stars, remembering the human who showed them mercy. The universe was vast, full of danger, mystery, and fear. But that night, it also felt a little more human.